Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cole Memo. We are live, folks, so make sure to smash that like button if you're tuning in right now. Drop your comments below. We can feature them on screen because we are live, and who knows, maybe at the end we might even open up the lines for callers. But today I'm joined by Phil, Phil, I think you're in rare company. I think it's like you, smart approaches to marijuana, and
I wouldn't
maybe
call
like
that I wouldn't call that good company.
I figured you'd have that reaction. Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is you're probably one of the most recurring guests on the show, and so I always look forward to having you on. And Happy New Year, dude. How you been?
Of course, it's a pleasure. I've been terrible. I was sick for a week.
That's right. That's right. You couldn't even smoke, right?
I crashed my car the day I was supposed to go visit family for Christmas, then was visiting family for Christmas, and then just got deathly sick for an entire week when I came back.
Damn. I didn't know you
It was
crashed
it was
your
a
car.
pretty it was a fun Christmas.
Sounds eventful to say the least. Well, damn. I hope you're well. I'm glad you're well, and I'm glad you're with us today because, like I say, I've been looking forward to doing this show with you, and I know that we have other plans, but we won't spoil our listeners with that. We'll just hit them with that when we can do that. So, I just released this article at colememo.com, and the headline is High Level Overview of Illinois Animal. I meant to say Annual Cannabis Report for 2025, and I've covered this on the show. Like if you go back and I think episode 248 and 249, we covered a bit. But I took a little bit of a deeper dive, and I like writing articles, and so this was an opportunity to do that. And so, just for some background, in case folks don't know, the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act requires the release of annual cannabis reports from various state agencies in Illinois. And so that's basically what this is. It's a compilation of reports from several state agencies that oversee cannabis regulation, enforcement, public health, and revenue. And in this episode and in this article that I'm displaying on screen, I highlight portions of the report that stood out to me. And like I said in the headline, it is just part one. I plan to write another one soon, but we'll just breeze through some of these, and I'll leave the rest for you all to read yourself, because I want to focus most of our time on Illinois State Police today, because I found that section of the report to be most interesting. So to start, I'll just say that IDFPR said they, quote, issued operational licenses to 93 dispensaries, which is the most of any year so far. That's definitely a headline, I think, from the report. They also talk about how Metric is entering its post-launch phase. And as I write in the article, I think the post-launch phase is probably, I can't guarantee you this, but in the past, they've talked about features that are coming out in the future, specifically a Metric patient portal. So according to Vaughn Bentley, the Deputy Director of Cannabis Control at IDFPR, the portal would allow medical patients to check purchase history, remaining allotment, and other account details without even contacting a dispensary. Like I say, they don't specifically mention that in this report. They just say that they're entering the post-launch phase. But since I've been in the virtual room, if you will, with some of these people, I wanted to share what I think that post-launch phase might look like. Phil, any thoughts on the two little highlights I had from IDFPR?
Not really, unless they're letting medical patients shop at all the dispensaries.
Yeah, and they have voiced. So when I displayed this screen here, on my screen here, if you click on Vaughn Bentley's name and check out the article that I've got linked, they have IDFPR. Actually, I don't think that article that you click on will take you there. But the point is in the past, I've written articles. Actually, I think it's in this Metric patient portal one. Yes. They did voice support for medical patients at all dispensaries. They say they're supportive of that. They've, tried to help legislators craft that language. And that is, of course, that is what inspired this comment from Jim Champion. Do you remember this long comment that was posted where he was talking about how we've been working on opening up the dispensaries to medical patients longer than we worked on the original medical cannabis bill itself.
Well, yeah, because like back then there weren't like entrenched interests that were opposed to it.
Right.
Any of the interests that were like involved with the state would have been like, yeah, let's get this medical thing going. I want to start making money.
Yeah. My thought on that has always been, can we do that by rule somehow? And the answer has always been that I have been told is no because of the law. But I was told the same thing when I asked
Okay.
about doing
But
curbside.
yeah, but like what's going to happen if they just did it? Like Donald Trump just literally kidnapped a president of another country. You're telling me you can't just make all the dispensaries serve medical patients?
Here, I got it.
Like I would just say that like just to hear an elected official be like, oh, well, we don't know if we can really do that. It's like, no, that's weak. That's fucking weak.
Right. Well, and I think in the case of the agency, the reason like why the agency may hesitate to do something like that versus a curbside is because a company that's opposed to, medical patients shopping at all dispensaries could hypothetically sue the agency saying, we paid all these fees back in the day and you're just giving these people a license and they didn't have to do all the same things we did. I think that would be that, like, why they're hesitating versus if the legislature.
I'm sure the state has some dirt they could put out on someone that would threaten them like that.
Right. Well, I'm sure. Yeah. I was just going to say versus if the legislature did it, then it's like, it's just the law. You can't like really sue anybody. Like you're not.
I just feel like if they really wanted to do it, just do it. And if these companies try to sue you, then like just make life hell for them. Tell them, fine, if you're going to sue us and make this a problem for medical patients, we're going to enforce these laws and like be up your ass about everything. Like that seems to be how politics works now. So
yeah, it's true. It is true. Well, the next part of the report that I had to talk about, and like I say, this is brief, and then we're going to get right to the state police. I'm not even looking at the right article. There we go. I thought this was interesting, Phil. I don't know if you saw this because I just released this article, but the report, and Michael Lasley from Illinois News Joint pointed this out to me. The report lists that there's 87 issued craft grow licenses, but in the past, IDOA press releases, and I've got one literally right here. This is from IDOA, and they say, oh, where is it? The department has issued 88 craft grow licenses. It's right there. It's also been reported by other outlets like WGLT.org. I'll just open this up briefly. It's a NPR outlet, and they're talking about how the state has 88 licenses. It's right there. Reese Xavier was a part of this article, if I recall correctly, and he's a craft grower, been on the show in the past. Yeah, there's his name. So I bring this up because like Lasley pointed out, the report lists 87. Press releases and coverage in the past have cited 88, but I just went to the Illinois State website today and the number says 86. I just thought it was interesting. I'm not saying anything.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of a funny. I'm sure it's just a discrepancy, not a big deal, but.
Well, and I wonder if it's like something like maybe it was awarded and like the team changed so they couldn't have it really be awarded.
Right. That's what I was thinking, is that maybe it's like they were issued an operational license, or wait, I don't even know. But to your point, it's like maybe they were issued it, but then they were like, we can't figure this out. We don't have enough capital.
I mean, 80, 86, 87, 88, like whatever that number is, it's just a crazy number to think are actually out there. Because you maybe see like 5 craft companies,
right?
Like to date, like actually that have like product on shelves,
right?
It's just kind of hard to imagine like 88 more of them or like 80 more of them.
Yeah.
But they're gonna need some new shops and new price points and new people partaking in this market.
Hmm. And I'll just encourage people, since we are doing high level overviews today, you can read the whole report at colememo.com. I'm displaying it on my screen. There's actually 2 reports, and that's where there's kind of supplemental data. But I just wanted to show this really quick because it's kind of funny when you think about it, Phil. I thought this is where you were going to go with your point. When you're so this is this map that's kind of hard to see. I'll try to make it a little bit bigger. This map shows all of the transporters, craft growers, infusers, and cultivation centers in the state. And so, here they are scattered through the state. Then there's like this bubble of 109. And so they've got the Chicagoland breakdown over here. I just think it's funny because, like I said, this is where I thought you were going. Like, if you would have put a blank Illinois map and asked me before 2020 or even before 2014 when we licensed these 21 cultivation centers, Cole, here's a blank state of Illinois map. Put how many dots you think there are where people are like growing weed. This would look like a freaking like polka dot mess. Like, it'd be crazy. I would never have been so conservative in my distribution. You know what I'm saying? I would be like, dude. And even still to this day, I'm sure that that's true, that more people than are being displayed on this map are growing. But do you get my point?
Oh yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't know.
It's very downstate is very sparse.
Yeah.
Which is I don't know if it's ironic, but it's not what you would think, because if the market were just allowed to like develop, like if these licenses weren't assigned to geographic regions, like Southern Illinois would be like booming, because that's where like out of state traffic is coming from more south, I would think, not like Northern Indiana's going to Michigan. Like sure. No one east of the northern part of the state is coming to Illinois to buy weed. Maybe they're coming from like Iowa, and there's probably people coming down from Wisconsin. So it's like, I just always thought it was interesting because you would have seen so many more businesses pop up in these like rural areas that could probably use the business and the tax revenue, much more than Chicago, honestly.
Yeah. So that's basically the size of, there was, like I said, more in the article that I covered, and definitely much more in the report. So I'll encourage people to check out the show notes and check out my report and the state's reports so you can see the full details. Let's move on to what I think is going to be fun and what I was really excited to talk to you about tonight, which is the Illinois State Police section of this report. And I'm just going to read like kind of how the Illinois State Police describe themselves in the report to start. So they provide enforcement, investigation, and processing of all cannabis-related criminal offenses. This includes curbing illicit market activity, which they defined as non-tax sales and possession, enforcing laws related to driving under the influence, and overseeing security requirements within the legal cannabis industry. So, I will just say that drug policy discussions in Illinois typically include the Illinois State Police as a major stakeholder in the legislative process, and they sort of back up my perspective on that by detailing in the report that the agency conducted 14 legislative bill reviews related to cannabis, psilocybin, and hemp. So state police are involved, in these drug policy conversations in Illinois.
Some company should put out a weed strain called ISP.
I like that. ISP.
They're such an integral part of the culture in this state. I mean, they should really have a strain named after them, right?
Straight up. It would only be right, I think.
You get pulled over for having like a container in your center console for improper transport. They just pull it out and it says Illinois State Police on it.
That would be great. That'd be too good. Somebody needs to come up with a whole brand on it. That's funny. So they, like I said earlier, Illinois actually released 2 reports, and they did this last year as well. The reports include data on the continued criminalization of cannabis in Illinois, and I will just say that the The annual cannabis report includes statewide arrest data. So they make pretty clear on a few different graphs and figures that this reflects only Illinois state police activity. But they also release the Adult Use Cannabis Health Advisory Committee report, and that provides additional data on arrests by local law enforcement. Like I said, you can read both reports on my website. So I'll have that link in the show notes. One of the things that stood out to me, and I'll pull up the actual graph from the report. In the criminal justice section of the 2025 report, that's that health advisory committee one, 57.5% of those incarcerated for Cannabis Control Act violations were Black or African American, compared to 28% who were white, 28.7%. So very interesting stuff. I'm going to throw the graphics
Well,
up
and that
on
would
the screen.
include people, because they never famously repealed the Cannabis Control Act. So that would include people who are in jail for crimes committed pre-2020 and after 2020, right?
Say that again?
Like that's the same act that was around
Yes.
since the 70s. So
Correct.
those people in prison, like those numbers are, the people could be in prison for crimes that they committed after 2020 or before 2020.
Bingo. Yeah. And we see stories like that. I mean, you remember that Instagram thread you were going back and forth with somebody on? They were like, "Oh, just don't be stupid." And you were like, "Dude, this guy has been arrested. He's like 8 years into a 30-year sentence. Like, it wasn't even legal when he was trying to."
Yeah, like he has a 24-year sentence.
Yeah. I mean, Christian Reichert, who came on the show with you and I, people can watch those shows at colememo.com/isitlegal. He was one of those stories. I mean, he literally was one of those stories.
And you know what's interesting about his case was he wasn't in prison for cannabis possession, right? He was in for, it was like conspiracy or something like that, right?
Something, yeah. I can't remember. It was crazy.
Because that's the other thing I was thinking about these numbers is like there are people who wind up in prison like for cannabis, but the charge that they're in prison for is not going to be cannabis. Like if you have some weed and like a gun on you, you know, isn't that like a felony all of a sudden?
Yeah. No, and to your point.
So if it's like a small amount of weed and you have this gun on you and all of a sudden you have a felony for the gun, like, you know, are you a cannabis offender? Like kinda.
Right. And I mean, that's kind of the point actually that I recall Evan Bruno making when I had him on the show. And it's one of the quotes I featured in my mini doc, which I'll plug, colememo.com/mini doc. He says that he has represented people that have gotten charged with worse crimes only because it started with this smell of cannabis. I know that's a specific issue, but
well, that's what they want, right? That's why they want to be able to search your car for the smell of weed.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay, this was an interesting one, and I covered it in the article, and you pointed this out when I sent you a different graph, which we'll look at here in a second. But there was an increase in Cannabis Control Act arrests in 2024, the first year-over-year increase since legalization, or the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act.
I wonder what that stems from. Like, I wonder if that's like part of, I don't know if like law enforcement is trying to like crack down on just trying to do more enforcement in general, just because it seems like they've been kind of slacking since the pandemic. Like, I don't know what that, like, did someone put out a directive like, hey, I want to see more people brought in for this?
Yeah, here's the numbers though displayed in years. So this is 2016 when the Illinois Cannabis Control Act was let's say in full effect. And then here's when small amounts were decriminalized. Oh, sorry, you couldn't see my mouse. So in 2016 was pre, 2017 was when we decriminalized small amounts. You see a large drop, and that was the largest decline. And that happened between 2016 and 2021. Um,
There's actually probably a larger drop too, or there's probably a drop before this chart because the city of Chicago decriminalized possession before the state did, I remember too.
True.
So the numbers pre 2016 might have been even higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it
Straight up.
is insane. Like, because I remember, like, when you and I, for the longest time, would be like, people are still arrested for weed, blah, 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 blah. And then people would pull out this chart and it was like, no, look how much arrest dropped, like, in the years since legalization. But I don't remember it looking like this because this is wild.
Yeah.
Like, literally, the change between 2019 and 2020 is really not very large.
No. No, and it's remained consistent, and they point that out. It's sort of plateaued since 2022, and they say that may represent a sustained post-legalization level of enforcement. So, like,
Well,
this is
you would
kind of the
hope,
new
but
normal.
honestly, if you look at, I mean, I know this isn't like a huge sample of years, but it goes from 4,000 to 3,500 back up to 4,000. So
Right.
there's also a chance that next year it's going to go back up to 5,000. And then maybe
Well,
the year after that, it'll go up to 8,000.
and thank you for pointing that out because that's what I led with, that this is the first year that, you know, we've seen a year-over-year increase. Because before that, if you look, it's always been a decrease. Even if it's just slight, as you pointed out, it's always been a decrease. Well, this is the first time we've had an increase, you know? So, um, yeah, like you say, it could
Like I
absolutely
would
trend
love
the other
to
way.
know, like I would love to know what like someone like a Bob Morgan has to say about that. Like what, like the legislators who like did this thing and like, told themselves it's because we don't want to arrest people for weed anymore. It's like, well, you're still arresting like 4,000 people a year, and that's actually up from last year or 2 years ago, whatever that may be. Like, I would be very interested to know what last year's numbers were in this
Right.
set.
Yeah, and I was just about to look something else up from the Illinois State Police report, because you brought up, oh, and I can't find it now.
And also, are these are any of these numbers for, because if you get a ticket for improper transport, do you get arrested? I thought you did, because
I
I thought
think
it was like
so.
a DUI.
Yeah, I'm not
Like
sure.
I thought like you had to be taken into
Oh, yes,
custody and like,
sorry.
whoa.
Improper transport is a Class A misdemeanor. Yeah, and it's a
So
jailable
that,
offense up to a year.
but it's so like when you get that, you don't just get like a ticket and like it's sent on your way, right?
Not, I mean, it just depends. It just depends. But yeah, I mean, they can totally book you, and that's what Evan said happens to people. Like, they won't, like, they'll let you go, but you're gonna get, like, you're gonna go through the process of getting a mug shot and being charged, and
Right. That's what I thought. And they're gonna like
yeah.
tow your car.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So I wonder how many of these are that.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Because
and
that would also kind of make sense as to then why the numbers from 2019 to 2020 didn't drop so much, because they were inventing new crimes.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I can't remember what I was trying to look up here. I had a trailing point on this data. There's some data that relates to what we were just discussing, but it's okay. I was gonna, you were talking about enforcement in Chicago. I think I was gonna pull up this map because you brought up, that
Yeah, that
Chicago
that
decrimmed
map is
first.
insane. That map is insane.
Yeah, and so for people that don't know what's going on, so the blue dots here are crimes. The triangles are where cannabis dispensaries are, and this is something that's been reported by the Chicago Tribune. It was backed up by university researcher James Swartz, who actually is one of the authors of this report, and that's why we're getting new data here, from what I understand. And so, basically, what you're seeing here, and as he's analyzed it, arrests continue in areas without dispensaries, which just so happen to also be the same areas that have disproportionately been affected by the war on drugs. In other words, marginalized communities.
Yeah, like those
Um,
are the black and brown parts of Chicago. Like
yeah,
where all the dispensaries are, at least up on the north, that's where the white people live. And then all the blue, you got the west side over here, like Austin, Lawndale, all those areas. And then, yeah, the south side just has 0 dispensaries and has arrests all over the place.
yeah. Here's a quote actually from the article. Cannabis arrests in Chicago are increasingly concentrated in cases involving larger quantities and alleged intent to distribute. While low-level arrests continue to decline, enforcement remains active, particularly for higher weight possession and delivery offenses, suggesting that legalization has not fully eliminated cannabis-related criminal enforcement in the city. And there's a
Well, yeah, because
graph here.
they literally made the market so it only, like, poor people do not patronize the cannabis market.
Right.
So,
can't.
like, most people are poor. Where are they getting their weed?
Right. Oh, Phil, I remembered what I was gonna say. So we were looking at that chart, and you were wondering, like, "Hey, I wonder what it's gonna look like in the future." Well, there's another section of this report where they talk about, "Hey, one of the big things that's getting in the way of our, like, like the state attorney and stuff won't let us pursue cannabis charges because they're saying it's this hemp stuff," which of course is gonna be dealt with if that
Oh,
language
God.
comes to pass. But yeah, I'll pull it up here in a second, but that was the point that you were asking, like, where the numbers were and what they might be in the future, and I was like, "I wonder how that's gonna affect it," because they literally pointed out as a thing of like, "Man, they're just calling this stuff THCA flower, and none of the attorneys will let us pursue charges
Well,
because it's
and I
legal."
remember, I mean, I know that guy from Two Dope Dudes, Dave, I think his name is. I
Mhm.
remember him talking about being pulled over and cops finding a vape and him just being like, "Oh, it's hemp." So, like, I'm sure people get out, have, like, gotten off of stuff, like, getting rid of that excuse, yeah, you would think would probably juice those numbers a little bit more, right?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
also what, like, yeah, like hemp, like that whole hemp market kind of came in with our like the 2018 Farm Bill, right?
Yep,
Then there was the CBD boom, and then maybe like 2021, 2022, people started really getting into like the THCA stuff.
right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I'm looking through here right now. We thought this was interesting too. I don't know if you saw us talking about this, but it says the chart below represents the total number of DUI drugs in FY25, including other illicit compounds or combinations thereof. And it's like, well, that's really vague. It's like, I thought this was the cannabis report, like just make it about cannabis. But no, they have to, like, unless I'm misunderstanding this,
Are
other
these like
illicit,
these are the numbers for the whole state?
I guess.
That's fascinating. I would have thought there are way more DUIs.
Right? Yeah, that is alarming. It's a
Like,
number.
you got what, the highest one is like 328 in the month of June for the whole state of Illinois. That's pretty
Damn.
good.
That's those are good numbers, yeah. Not bad at all. Um, so they talk about THC, basically like presence of THC in bodily fluids and the complications that come with that. Something I scrolled over that sort of relates to this is they're talking about how they have to like um pay for this new equipment to prove, like what cannabis is. So they have to get these like GCMS and
Wait,
LCQQQ,
wait, wait.
whatever.
What? To prove
It's
what cannabis is?
Well, it's for quantification of THC for hemp. Basically, they're like, you have to understand this report was due in September, so the hemp ban wasn't official yet.
Oh,
And
okay.
so they're
Okay.
like planning for worst case scenarios. So they're buying like a bunch of equipment and shit because people keep being like, well, it's only 0.3% THC. And they're like, all right, we're gonna start testing that. That's kind of what they were gearing up for. Um, I covered this section in here. I love that they call Chicago a hub and distribution point for drug trafficking. I mean, apparently
Yeah,
it
it
is
is.
designated as a HIDTA on the DEA's website. I looked into what that means, and that's a DEA designation, like a federal designation. Chicago has that
Oh yeah.
for that. But yeah,
I believe, I mean, from stuff I've read over the years and different cases, like the cartels have like a large presence in Chicago.
yeah,
Because a lot of stuff just moves through here and then goes to the rest of the country.
yeah. What do you think about this line, Phil? The illicit mark. So they talk about how Illinois law requires Illinois dispensaries to sell cannabis obtained solely from an authorized cultivation center or craft grower. However, the illicit cannabis market remains unregulated. At the street level, it is difficult for local law enforcement officers to determine the actual source of cannabis in the possession of consumers.
Yeah, good.
And I know I'm
Well, what is it? I know in I think it's Ohio, they just passed a bunch of those like rollback kind of conservative regulations, and I do think one of them is like the weed has to be in the original container.
that's
And
crazy.
I don't know what the penalty is, but like I know initially they were talking about uh charging people with like felonies who brought weed back from Michigan. It's like, guys,
Yeah,
like, or you could try to make your market competitive.
right. No, but they have to. That's hilarious. I wouldn't be surprised if you see some sort of proposal like that in Illinois coming up.
I mean, what's funny is like I remember, like, I'm old, so this is like, God, I was probably 16 at the time. So a long time ago, but it was like it was the first time I remember you could order like cigarettes. Like my friends and I used to like pool money and we would order cartons of cigarettes from like Poland,
Oh,
because
snap.
you could get like name brand cigarettes for like $2 a pack or something like that. It was crazy. But then the state like did a whole crackdown thing on it, and obviously you're like walking around with packs of cigarettes that don't have the tax stamp on them. But yeah, like I mean, I guess that'll just always be a problem in Illinois, I guess.
Yeah. No, straight up. Straight up. I found the section I was referring to, and I can scroll back because I scrolled through a few different things, but I love how this is worded. So they like kind of give the background and everything. Illinois law enforcement has struggled in convincing state attorneys to move forward with the prosecution of the product's initial association with hemp/CBD, which, since it is legal, leads the state attorneys to be reluctant to prosecute. This is what I was saying when I meant like you got to take the win for what it is, people.
Yeah, like I love that. Just love that phrase. Like, has struggled in convincing the states trying to move forward in prosecution of cannabis, which they're admitting is still largely illegal in this sentence, because hemp is legal, which is the problem in enforcing cannabis crimes.
Yeah. Somebody asked a
Ugh.
good question that I can address really quick because I recently wrote about it. So the law used to, yes, law enforcement interpreted the original law to mean original container because it said it must be in a sealed, tamper evident, childproof, odor-proof container. And I believe, struck. I've got the exact coverage on the website colememo.com, and I can send you a message afterwards if I'll try to paste it in the show notes too for people that are interested in learning more. But basically, we struck like tamper evident and all that stuff, and basically just added so it's sealed or resealable. And the idea, the people that pushed that law, I talked to them back in the day, and this is the phrasing they used: cannabis should not be a one-way product. Just like like open up a 6-pack or something. Like if you drink, a couple, you can still bring the 6-pack home. Like just because took a
Also,
little bit out of the package.
I
So
thought that was like largely just cops that like misinterpreted. Like it was them putting out those like like clips that they did back in like 2019.
Right.
And they're like, this is the new laws, just so you know, it has to be in the original container. And we're all like, no, it doesn't.
Nope. Doesn't say anything like that. And I remember
I'm a big pothead. I read this law back in front. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I love when people like online will be like, "You have to buy weed from a dispensary." It's like, now I've talked to the people that like made a concession and got the CRTA where it was, and it's very clear that the carve out of the CCA is 30 grams or less is no longer a criminal offense. And that's what ultimately made gifting legal as well, because it's like if you're just the way that the CCA is phrased is the penalty for delivery, casual delivery, in other words, no money is exchanged, is the penalty for possession. Well, the penalty for possession now, as long as it's under 30 grams, and you're in state, of course, because out of staters still get caught for having over 15 grams, for example. But I'm getting lost in the details here. You get my point. Um, the law says nothing like you don't have to purchase your weed from a dispensary. There's nothing that says that. It just says that now 30 grams or less is decriminalized for in-state residents, and then so on and so forth. But anyways, yeah, I just thought that little section was interesting. They're talking about seeing a rise in the sale of high THC content hemp flower, which has boomed onto the market because of confusion or purposeful obfuscation of federal hemp legislation. These products often has THCA content as high or higher than cannabis flower sold in licensed dispensaries in the state.
It's the same. It's the same stuff.
It is. It's so silly, but
like, okay. The what where it's like high concentrations of THCA. It's like, yeah, I've seen the labels on the dispensary products too.
Right. Yeah, a lot of them could qualify as hemp, or I've seen a number of them. I don't mean to say a lot. I just wanted to display these numbers. I don't know, Phil, if you'd find this interesting. These are seizures that the state has done, so they kind of like put a bullet. I think this is like their greatest hits, like of the year. Like looking back,
it's like 3,000 pounds. That is quite a bit, but like they put the one in there, 3 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. I like
3 pounds of weed. It's not really that much.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Where did they put I thought it was interesting what they estimate to be the price per ounce, $200.
Wait. Will you go back? Will you go back to where those like listings were, the ones you were just on? Yeah. 57 pounds at O'Hare. Jesus. Guys, don't take that much through the airport.
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah. Here's cannabis on the highway and waterway, which I don't think there's actually any specifically on the waterway that they point out, but yeah. Okay. What were we gonna say?
Cannabis nexus.
I think my understanding of the word nexus is it's like
well, I mean, is it just meaning this is in conjunction with a crash?
Yes, I think so.
DUI in combination with possessing cannabis, crash in connection with possessing cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
What's a medical cannabis charge?
I don't know. I did see, and I think the Two Dope Dudes covered in their podcast today, and I missed this number in the IDPH report, that apparently 4 cards were revoked for violations of the medical cannabis something or another. I want to know what
well, I know you can get your card revoked for smoking like outside.
Really?
Like if you're using in public, I feel like I remember that being a thing. Because also when I was it's a different state, so obviously totally different laws. But when I was in Utah, I remember the guy who I was at the dispensary because you can get like a visitor's medical card. And the guy was like, just so you know, it's illegal to combust this, like cannabis flower. And
Mhm.
he's like, and if you're caught like smoking it, your like visitor medical card is like void. Like if you're like out in public and you're consuming, your card can be found to be like void, and then you're just charged with possession. I was like,
Wow.
oh well, this is doing me a lot of good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
But
Well,
I feel like I remember that. Like anything you do that breaks the laws regarding cannabis, I think is grounds to like have your card revoked.
mhm.
But it's
It
crazy to me that they actually like would do that.
Yeah, no, they do they say they can do it for growing violations as well.
Which makes
So,
sense. Like
yeah.
if you have the card and you're saying you're gonna keep it to 5 plants, you know, if you're growing 6, 7, 8 of them, I can imagine it's like, hey, you don't get to keep your card.
Right. I thought this was an interesting section of the report. They're talking about a continued obstacle for officers across the state is obtaining blood draws. Area hospitals often refuse to draw blood for officers, or officers wait several hours to obtain a blood sample. The statutory 2-hour time frame to obtain an evidentiary blood sample causes significant issues when prosecuting drivers for DUI cannabis. To minimize this obstacle, ISP is basically starting a phlebotomy training program. And
I, I heard you talking about this with someone else. It's crazy.
yeah, I just had to cover it briefly because I'm just like, it took me a while to really absorb what that could mean. I guess like that could mean, I guess you're getting your blood drawn on the side of the road in the dark or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's such a big state. Like, how many of these phlebotomists are they? Are these cops they're just certifying?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. So yeah, it's the ISP phlebotomy pilot program, and the goal is to determine the feasibility of a statewide program.
Well, and it's interesting, yeah, because this is just a pilot program. So what? Like, eventually, like you know, a year or two from now, when they say, "Oh, that pilot was a success. We've had great prosecutions sending all these people to prison for having some arbitrary amount of weed in their blood." Um, let's have all our cops be phlebotomists.
Right. Right. Seems like a slippery slope if I've ever seen one. That's scary. Um,
Well, because also just it's just bullshit. The 5 nanogram thing is just bullshit. It's
right.
made up.
Exactly. You're quoting one of our lawmakers, actually. I just realized it's made up. Yeah, they're talking about
Because you just think like, not to keep dwelling on it, but like you just think about all the fucking drugs and substances people take, and like just being tired, people who are overworked and have 5 kids, and you know, they maybe slept 4 hours, and at the end of the day they're like driving home, like, you know, like I mean, my sister, I remember one time when we were younger, she got pulled over, and the cop thought she was drunk, and she was just exhausted.
right, right.
But like being tired behind the wheel, I'm pretty sure is more dangerous than most people being stoned behind the wheel.
I agree. As somebody I was like, never again. It was scary.
I honestly, I mean, I probably shouldn't say this, but like being at least slightly stoned before I get in the car is for everybody's benefit in my respect. Because I'm like an angry psychotic driver.
Yeah.
So if I just have like a little bit of weed, I'm like, whatever, you know, we all get there when we get there.
Right. It completely changes the attitude. We're all going to the same place.
But if I'm not stoned, I'm like, what the fuck is everyone doing? Why are you going so slow?
Yeah. Is this your first time here in Chicago? Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. Well, yeah. No, it's just going to be interesting to see, and just a brief extension of this topic, and then I'll switch gears back to some interesting numbers that they throw around, and the seizures they've done. I think it's interesting. They point out, because of the surge of hemp derived products, like we're not only like looking to test, like right now, the law is just how much Delta 9 you have in your blood or urine. But if you have Delta 8 or THCP or XYZ, like they're like, It should be all cannabinoids. That's kind of the
God,
um
remember pre-legalization when they just did like a basic, hey, do you look super fucked up on weed? You got a DUI. Like this whole like, oh, we're gonna have this level, like pre-legalization, tons of people were driving around smoking weed. And all that the cops did was they were like, oh, you look high out of your mind. I'm giving you a field sobriety test. And if you failed it, you got a DUI.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. My favorite joke, I know I tell it every time that's brought up, but Ron White, he says it's not a drunk drive. That's not a sobriety test. That's an agility test, and I'm not very fucking agile. I mean, it's
I
true.
also liked I think it was Bill Maher at some point. He was like, you know what they should do is they should like give you a test when you go to get your driver's test, where they give you a bunch of different substances and find out how fucked up like you personally can be to drive a car.
That's
You're
funny.
like, oh, okay, this guy's actually okay to drive on Xanax, Coke, weed.
Yeah, this guy's good.
He can have 4 beers, but if he has 5, that's too much.
That's funny. That's hilarious. I always enjoy comedy, so yeah, hell yeah. Well, I displayed this earlier, but what do you think about this? They say that cannabis flower is $200 an ounce and $2,500 a pound.
Maybe if you're buying it at the dispensaries in Illinois.
Exactly. Like what? I mean, don't get me wrong. I've paid $200 for an ounce before, but I can't tell you the last time.
I actually probably paid $200 for an ounce not that long ago, but 40 of it was probably taxes.
Yeah. And you know what? You might be right. I think I went to this place called Information Entropy or something, and I think it may have been close to $200, but it was some good flour. It was in Michigan.
Yeah, sometimes you got to splurge on the nice stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always do. I've always tried to say that there's gonna, and you made this point in the past brilliantly. Like there should be mids, there should be like regular quality, like low, bottom tier quality, just like there is with.
No, I think specifically, I said 90% of stuff or most of stuff is mids.
Yeah, but I do think there's gonna be people can, just like a Johnny Walker Red. There's gonna be somebody who can demand like, nah, this is a $200 ounce, and it's like, yeah, oh, I get it.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're like,
yeah,
truly, there is someone that will be able to charge $200-$300 for an eighth. It's all just the marketing, the story. Like something like Pappy Van Winkle is not actually worth the money. It's it's like the rarity, the story, what kind of celebrities have endorsed this thing,
right, right, absolutely.
But yeah, like you go into a liquor store, like most of the stuff is bottom shelf liquor.
Yeah.
And like even wine, like most of the volume of wine in a liquor store, even a nice one, is going to be like Carlo Rossi, Franzia, like the bad stuff.
Yeah. And it's good. Like I'm not saying the stuff is good. I'm saying like I don't have a problem with that.
Well,
like
again, most people are poor. Like this is a poor country for the most part. So yeah. Like when you look at like, I know I've seen like market statistics from like Michigan of like what people are buying, and it's cheap stuff. Like they buy cheap stuff because that's like that's what they want to spend.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. Makes total sense. This is another part of the report that I thought was funny. So they say they seized about 18.5 tons of cannabis, including 14 plants. I like this part though. This is from later in the report. 14 illicit cannabis plants were seized, which at harvest can yield up to 1 pound of cannabis buds per plant. Man, like I could yield a lot off of off of one plant, and definitely off of like the 5 you're allowed. But I don't know if indoor, unless I had like a huge ass grow, I could really do 1 pound a plant, but I don't know. Um,
I
yeah,
mean, I'm sure if you had some practice.
true. Yeah, LST.
Yeah, it is funny though. It's like go up, it's how many
Oh, sorry.
millions of grams and 14 plants.
Yep, and 14 plants. Yeah, and I don't know if like that's including like is the 14 cannabis plants like separate from the 18.5 tons? And you know what they did with those? They destroyed it, and not in a fun way, not like loading it into a bong. They took apparently 10,020. I don't know where the rest of it went. That's a good question. 10,720 pounds of it, though, were transported to Viola Environmental Services in Sauget, Illinois. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, Sauget.
Sauget. Um, Apparently, no funds were used to do this, via the Cannabis Control Office. However, the use of CCO funding is being explored as an option for future large-scale cannabis destructions.
Just throw it in the dump. Who cares?
Right?
What are we doing?
It's
Like
just
what? You gotta like be sure it's destroyed. What? It's not fentanyl, guys.
yeah. Here's another one. I just thought of this because we've talked about this at length, so we can breeze over this. And then I've basically got one more and I think one more thing to talk about in this report, and then we can start to close out. But in the report, they talk about how they continue to train officers to identify and enforce impairment in order to protect public safety. And they emphasize the role of on-scene observations. And so they talk about how following decriminalization on January 1st, ISP temporarily paused imprinting new canines with the odor of cannabis to evaluate how evolving legislation and court rulings would affect their deployment. This proactive approach prevented the need to replace a large number of canines at once and preserved flexibility should future rulings favor or restrict cannabis imprinted canines. Today, ISP supports a canine section of nearly 70 canines, some imprinted with cannabis and some not, which I swear they were telling us that's not possible. But anyways, ensuring the department remains adaptable while closely monitoring the legal landscape. It's good to know that's possible now, that they don't have to be imprinted with cannabis. I thought it was like confusing for the dog or something.
Well, I think they were saying that you can't like
Untrain them.
yeah, you can't like untrain them once they're trained.
I get that. And actually I was thinking about that too. It's 2026. So if they're like, if their dog, like the dog has got to be done by now, is my point. Like 6 years, like,
Oh yeah, because they're also usually well, I guess I don't know, but I mean they usually seem like they're larger dogs.
right.
So they're not really living past like 12, 13.
Yeah. So maybe they can do like 12 or 13 years of service. So maybe,
Well, I doubt. Yeah, actually, you're right. They probably retire them after like 8, 9.
Yeah. But even then, it's like we're a bunch of pups born in 2019 that depend on these jobs. Like, were they already in service?
Got to worry about these dogs' jobs.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's tough out there for a dog these days.
Yeah, it seriously is. Seriously is. So, anyways, I just thought that section deserved just a little bit of airtime. I don't think there's anything more. They did, acknowledge that the passage of SB 42, which is what, we talked about a lot this year and advocates were pushing, like myself. They said that it would have significantly restricted enforcement authority related to cannabis detection and impaired driving, which that part really upsets me because that doesn't make any sense. SB 42 had nothing to do with impaired driving. In fact, it's just addressing the raw cannabis issue. Like, if anything, you'd think they'd be trying to like overturn legislatively the burnt cannabis thing, because like burnt cannabis signifies, in my opinion, that's what I've always thought was so silly about. Like, I'm not going to complain about it, don't get me wrong, but the fact that your car can smell like burnt cannabis, that is more of an indicator of impairment than if your car smells like raw cannabis, which is all SB 42 is about.
Well, none of it is really though, right? Like even smoking weed is not a good measure of impairment.
Right. And yeah, absolutely. But you get my point. Like this had to throw that in there. And this is from the report. I included
Well,
it in my article.
that's kind of why I love these reports that they put out, because it like really gives you a little insight, or a lot of insight, onto how they think,
Yeah.
you know? Like just the way this is all written, about things like, oh, it was a problem enforcing cannabis laws because hemp is legal. Like what?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I guess, but
And isn't it
okay.
great that that's part of our cannabis report?
Well, yeah, and there's just so much in here that it's like, oh god, they don't see anything wrong with this, or it's just straight. It's yeah. I mean, I'm glad they put this stuff out because it definitely is very insightful on the way things are and the way legislators and law enforcement think about things. And
Yeah. I'm curious what you think about this one because I had to read it a few times to like even translate it into the article. So, while expungements for minor cannabis offenses have not stopped, according to the report, the state has largely stopped tracking them. Beginning in fiscal year 2024, counties stopped submitting court orders that specifically identify minor cannabis cases. Instead, those cases are now grouped with non cannabis expungements and more general court orders. As a result, the Illinois State Police can no longer comprehensively record or report the number of minor cannabis records being expunged under the current reporting structure. The cannabis specific expungement figures included in the annual cannabis report will remain unchanged unless counties resume submitting cannabis specific court orders. In short, while expungements may still be occurring, the state can no longer reliably report how many cannabis related records are actually being cleared.
I mean, they should have been automatic, is the thing.
And they
Like,
do talk about
why
that. They do
the
talk about
state,
how they've processed those.
but they weren't automatic, right?
There was like a small number, I think, that kind of were. But you had to, I don't even know. I think what I was about to say is you had to file paperwork, so that's not automatic.
Yeah, I was pretty sure none of it was automatic.
And I think that was something that Carol Ammons, Representative Ammons, I should say, talked about on the show. So, yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, like you want to put on this whole performative thing that like, oh, the war on cannabis was bad. We want to make right the wrongs of the war on drugs. But then you like make it the burden of the person you charged, who, like people sometimes are pieces of shit just out in the world, not paying attention. Like you're just relying on people to go through this whole, look up the state website that has the information to do this, find some group that's going to help them do it. Because that was the other thing, was like it wasn't free.
No.
Like, because I know like the groups like Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition, they do
Have
a
to
lot
like
of stuff with
support,
that, and
have to help support people. Yeah.
yeah.
It's a good point. You know what? I think I've literally done an episode with them about expungements or something, and need to refresh my memory about how that works.
Well, and like the reason that one guy is still in prison for his like 20 something year sentence is because they didn't allow you to get rid of convictions or expunge anything that was over 500 grams. Like if you had an actual
right.
if you had an actual like class X felony amount of weed, you were just screwed, and you're still screwed.
Right. Because that's bad, I guess.
Well, isn't that the funny thing? Because in the cannabis community, even among like people who run cannabis businesses in the state and like social equity licensees, they would be like, oh, those people that went to prison before legalization, they're the trailblazers, they're the OGs, they're the real, they're the real salt of the earth people. But it's like, no, really kind of fuck them, because they're still in prison or they still got these charges. They're definitely not getting a license.
Right. And to be clear, you're not saying that. You're saying that's what the licensees would say.
Yeah. Well, that's just what the law says.
Or the law says.
Yeah. Gotcha. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but I remember Pritzker had a comment at the time about it. It was like, well, we're not going to like do anything to benefit actual criminals. We're just going to help these like low level, people.
Yeah, I had to make it digestible, I guess. I don't know.
But
Seems like
isn't that
everything's so incremental, you know?
like if you had banned a market for cannabis before 2020, except for like the medical thing we had, but like so someone was going to be supplying that market. Like I just don't it should have been all of them, but you know that politicians, like I'm sure there was some worry about like, oh, there might be one or two really bad people that are like in prison for that felony amount of cannabis, and if you let them out, you know, you're going to have your own like, what's that famous case? Just like when a politician does something to get a convict out of jail and then they like reoffend, and then it becomes like a political story against them.
Yeah. Yeah. Um yeah, I just like you say, I never thought it would be this way, but then other people are like, what else would you think? And it's just like, I don't know. I just don't it sucks that it just feels like and I know there's been a lot bigger fish to fry. That's what people say to me, especially in times like these. Like you said, like a person from another country was just like a leader of another, which I know, whatever. I don't even mean to get into that. Just there's bigger things going on. You know what I'm saying? And so I understand that. It just sucks that it feels like in Illinois, there's just like no real energy, grassroots energy, I guess I should say. It feels like all the proposals you see are just like the same industry proposals they've been pushing for the last few years. You know, we've got that medical patient for all dispensaries proposal. We've got, you know, Senate Bill 42, which didn't go anywhere, but it got pretty far and hopefully we can push it, you know, but like
Well, but also like what can you really expect from most citizens, you know? Like
true.
it's clear that like, I mean, it's this way in other states and obviously at like the national level, but like
Yeah, that's a good point.
Illinois politicians like they just don't care about what a normal person has to say or advocate about. Like if you don't have money to give them, they don't give a fuck.
Right. They're not going to put their name on the line for it or anything. And that makes sense, you know, because yeah, if you,
Yeah,
the
like there
money you,
is no in politics, like as it exists, there is no like you're not like Mr. Smith going to Washington with some big morals and you're going to make a real change to the system. It's like, no, it's all about money. And if you don't have money, you can't get listened to and nothing's going to get done.
right. Did, did we cover this graph? I was looking at the report. Did we cover this, the specific cannabis control arrest charges for Chicago? I just thought it was interesting because it's
Oh no.
2023 compared to 2024 and 2025. And you can see the jump. There's been a jump. In one case, there's a dip, but surprisingly low number of cannabis plant charges.
The numbers for possessing cannabis 30 grams or less is kind of fascinating. So those would all be, I guess, non-Illinois residents.
Interesting. I mean, one would have to think because I don't know how else you would be. But it specifically. Wait, hold on. Which one did you say? This one, possessing.
30 grams or less.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Like I would think either they're out of state or they're like between the age of 18 and 21.
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting one. Yeah, so I thought that chart was
Man, also those people getting picked up for manufactured delivery for 10 grams or less. That's
right. Look at that. Look at that
what a
jump too.
shame.
716.
Oh no, I'm talking about the one even down here where it's manufactured delivery for even like for a tiny
Oh,
amount
I see that
or
now.
like a quarter.
Damn. How the hell do you get in trouble for that?
I mean, people sell weed and all kind. There's the guys on the L in Chicago who just, you know, yell out weed. I could imagine it'd be them.
Okay. Huh. That's just so interesting. Yeah. So, like I say, there's much more in there. We just really scratched the surface tonight. Definitely take a deeper look. Go to colememo.com. I've got both of these reports that I covered, and honestly, folks, we only covered like the last few pages of the other report that was released. I haven't even gone through it yet. I saw the criminal justice data, and I was like, I want to read that. So there's other data though too. Like this is the Department of Corrections total prison admissions and Cannabis Control Act violations. Um, I was having trouble making sense of this. Phil, do you understand what's going on here? So the red, okay, I see a dip here. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't get what this is exactly telling us.
Well, what I think, but I could be wrong because I'm really, anyways. I've been smoking. The orange, is all offenses, and then so this red dot right here is saying there were 296 Cannabis Control Act holding offenses. I think, in other words, you were held in prison in 2018 compared to like the 22,000 other holding offenses. That's what I think it's saying, and then so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering what that is in relation to, like, what's the difference between a holding offense and like just being arrested?
Yeah, that's a good. I don't even. Let's see if there's more information. The most common CCA offenses were this in 2024. This says
Well,
it's
these data suggest that enforcement of CCA statutes continues to be focused on larger quantities associated with manufacturing or distributing rather than personal possession.
yeah. And they're also saying that legalization has had a lasting impact on incarceration for cannabis related offenses, which is interesting because there's a few parts where they're pretty blunt about it, where they're like, white individuals were, well, that's not the one I was thinking of. Cannabis arrests have declined, and like I think I read this one earlier, they've stabilized, which suggests we've reached like a baseline. Like in other words, like these arrests will just continue. Just kind of like a fact-based statement like that. I thought was interesting to read. Just like, yeah, this is what will happen with the Cannabis Control Act still being the law of the land. You know. Here's the arrests relative to dispensary location. We looked at that.
I mean, that map, like of Chicago, I think I've said this before. It's like it's just an indictment of the way we've done things. Like you just like the original intent of this whole thing was because certain people that are black and brown are disproportionately arrested for cannabis, and that was not fair. That was like one of the like foundations of this whole thing in Illinois. And you just look at that map and it's like, oh, okay, so what's changed?
Right.
Because honestly, a map of Chicago like this pre-2020, I would think would look pretty much the same.
And I think that's exactly what I understand the researcher to say is he said it basically just reflects the enforcement patterns that have always existed in these areas. Like in other words, no change. So pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Like I say, a lot of good data in here. That was just the Adult Use Health Committee report. I mean, there are other things covered in this report. We won't go through it, but just to like, there's
the annoying thing about this report is not one legislator read it.
Yeah.
In the House or the Senate, none of them. I bet they didn't read it at all.
So yeah, Phil, do you have any predictions for 2026? Maybe that's a good way to end. Do you think we're going to get any? I've heard the word on the street is now that hemp's out of the way, this is the year for Illinois cannabis. Like this is everybody, everybody's gonna. We're gonna get our way.
I'd think more likely that we're we've already probably been in a recession for a couple years, but I don't know. Hopefully 2026 doesn't hit a depression. That certainly wouldn't be good for Illinois cannabis.
Right. No, it would not.
Yeah,
No,
but
it would not.
2026 in Illinois cannabis, it'll just be the same.
Think so?
I mean, you might have some more brands come to the market, some more companies open, but they're, you know, is there anything really exciting about that?
No. I wish we, like I said, we saw, credit where credit is due. We saw like a home grow expansion proposal last legislative session. I wrote about it on the website, but it didn't go anywhere. It didn't get through, like wasn't even called in committee. So I'm seeing we're missing comments. People are saying, does the market support it? Yeah. Some people say regulation changes are coming. Be interesting. Like I say, it will be interesting. But who knows, Phil? Thank you for joining me tonight. It's been fun going through the state cannabis data, the state police data mostly.
Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, folks, I hope you found value in this episode. Once again, check out the show notes. I'll add the links after the live stream, sometime after the live stream if you're tuning in now. But if you're listening later, check out those links if you want to read more. I encourage you to read these reports. There's a lot of good stuff in here. You maybe saw me scrolling. This is another report I haven't even gone through yet. Cannabis use in youth. There's a section on the business of cannabis in Illinois, which looks interesting. There's stuff about CBD and synthetic THC. There's stuff about cannabis use disorder. Illinois ED encounters. Is that what I think it is? No, it's not. It says potential cannabis hyperemesis syndrome.
It's like, what kind of report is this?
Right. Yeah, it's like diagnoses for ED encounters. What are you talking about? I really wonder, like, maybe they define that somewhere else, but I don't know. Is it? I don't know.
They're trying to scare people that cannabis gives them ED.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. But anyways, that section we read at the end literally is the end of the report. And then, like I said, there's a whole other 144-page report that we went through on the podcast the other night. But like I say, take a deeper look because we're just scratching the surface. There's no way I'm going to go through all of this on the show. So, but stay tuned for more articles and stay tuned for more content. And Happy New Year, everybody. Phil, Happy New Year. Thanks again for joining me. And everybody, take care. We'll see you on the next episode.